Hey, it is your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. And we're zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth on who the psychopath is attracted to, who they will select as their targets, who they will make their long range targets, and really kind of how to know which category you fall into, or kind of like you've been related to in the dynamic with this individual who is so troublesome and difficult in your life. And before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to those of you who have recently donated to the channel, including a frequent viewer who has really been making some amazing, awesome progress in her life and in her learning, really being able to connect the dots. I'm so proud of you, love you. Thank you so much for your contribution, your insight, and your input. I really do appreciate your viewership and so proud to see you coming along and keep up the good hard work that you're doing there. And I really want to now focus in a little bit more in depth and kind of understanding a psychopathic decision-making process. Who do they target? What are they looking for? And what is their empathetic dysfunction? Where's the deficit in this person? What is it all about? What are we really dealing with? Well, we're dealing with an individual who has a slower or deficient disabled response in their amygdala. Basically, the area of the brain, which is they have a developmental delay, almost like a developmental disability. I mean, someone had used the term retarded. I mean, that's not politically correct language. To say that somebody is that, we're professional here, and there is a developmental disability in this area of the amygdala and the other surrounding subcortical and cortical cortex of this individual, which is responsible for empathy. So especially processing of experience of fear and sadness. So they're able to kind of relate to feelings of happiness, whether it's a facial expression, whether it's an emotion of some sort. They're able to process that and understand, somebody's happiness. But there's a real deficit in having empathy or being able to feel the feelings of another as outside of oneself. In other words, to see someone who is crying or to hear someone who is fearful. For example, if you were to see somebody crawling on the ground, breathing in pain, having a heart attack, and they were, you would probably, your behavior would be go to assist them because you were well, you could, assist them. Your empathy would be initiated or instigated, and you'd be able to, help them. Now, someone who is psychopathic, they have a real deficit, a real empathy deficit, a real processing deficit, physically, in their brains, areas of their brain, which process feelings and expressions, both physically, emotionally, psychologically, as it relates to the fear of another or the sadness of another. So, if you are targeted in the beginning for being vulnerable, in other words, you might have some quality or something that psychopath wants. In other words, you could have an abundance of happiness. You could have an abundance of empathy. You could have an abundance of humanity. In other words, where you're the rescuer of those who are sad. You're the rescuer of those who are fearful. In other words, you have a real heightened sensibility or skill set or empathetic skill set, and then the behaviors and the language and the actions, and that whole repertoire that they do not have. So they can learn off of you very much like a sponge on how to mimic these behaviors for being there when someone is sad or fearful. But it's mimicry. It is fake. It is what they have to pretend as if in these situations. So a psychopath, they're able to exhibit, theory of mind or basically cognitive empathy where, they can understand how another person might be thinking. Like Dr. James Blair, he's done a number of different studies on this. He's specifically looked at like a lot of the emotional responses of the psychopath and doing some really groundbreaking work there. So kudos to him for his groundbreaking work. But, it's basically they are not able to, especially the most poignant and profound emotions, so that of sadness and fear. So really when you need people the most, when you are scared, when you are sad, when you are depressed, when, you've lost somebody and you're experiencing grief, the emotional holidays that might be more rich with these feelings, and you present disease as like a complete and whole person. And the psychopath is not getting it. They are not there. They're not there for you in those periods of time. It is because they're truly lacking in empathy. They don't, they don't have the language of these emotions. They just don't experience it. There is a very profound, meaning very deep, psychopathic, there's a deficit in the psychopathic individual in their ability to feel this and experience this in others, so they do not experience it. They're hollowed out there. And oftentimes those emotions come up fairly frequently. Fear, we can't pay the bills this month. Sadness, I can't believe I lost my pet. Fear, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't get this job. Sadness, I'm very sad. My father is sick. I'm very upset and depressed. My family member has passed away. I am very sad. I am sick. I'm depressed. I need your support. These are the experiences with which they do not experience, but furthermore, they are numb to, anesthetized, and so they'll reflect back to you, like they're just have like a zombie-like, a zombified experience, and so they're not able to validate it to you, and they're not able to be with you there in those moments and kind of process it. So it creates a real gap in the relationship. And if you're with these people, oftentimes this is when the devaluing and the discarding occurs, when you need them the most. You're sick, you're down. They're kicking you when you're down because, or they're saying, I can't, stand this about you, or I can't deal with that. It's because they literally, it has nothing to do with you. It's not any shortcoming with you. You have all the rich repertoire of emotions and feelings in the stuff that, movies are made of, and, have been responsible for the huge, accomplishments of humankind, have been their ability to face these challenges successfully and move beyond it. I mean, it's the triumph of the human spirit, which comes out of deep sadness or deep fear. I mean, look at, people who have undergone huge amounts of fear, Diary of Anne Frank, the challenges of the slaves, being tormented, and how to act positively even in the face of great fear. People who defend your countries, who, are in the midst of this, and, who have experienced, grave atrocities, yet they keep fighting on for a value and a goal and a mission and something abstract, political freedom, religious choice, all these different things which are responsible for, the huge fuel of the human spirit. They're going to downgrade that in you, that very quality, and kind of that impetus, that kind of like rocket fuel power that it takes all of a sudden to make a breakthrough, to emerge from poverty, the fear, the sadness that, surrounds that. The people who are told you'll never make it, whose seeds of fear are planted in you. You'll never make it. You're not smart enough. You don't have the right color skin. You don't have the, right shape of legs. You're too this, you're too that. It has nothing to do with reality. It's just them continuing to perpetuate the ignorance that has been part of their culture, part of their community, part of their family, part of their block. And then furthermore, it inhibits you from being able to think about think for yourself. So it's the fear is then thinking for you. It's the hormones of stress, which are then set and solidified in place. It's the old blueprint that is solidified. It's like ironed into place. It's like decaled on your soul, if you will. It's inked in very strongly. But see, that's where neuroplasticity and healing comes to play, because the brain is able to rewire and reset itself. It's able to reprogram itself just like a computer, where you need to reprogram and condition. And you can only do that when you get the virus out, when, you're able to do that. And so you need to feel your way kind of in intellectual knowing, but heartfelt knowing, where it becomes kind of like an automatic known to you that this is what has occurred, and to expunge it from your system. And so, realizing this, that if you're surrounded with these people who kind of seem, and one of the qualities of the psychopath is they have very shallow affect, very glib and very superficial, especially, a very a reduced fear response. So in other words, when most people would become afraid, their, the skin conductor, they'd begin to experience sweating on the skin, a little bit of accelerated heart rate. They, for example, committing violent crimes or committing financial crimes, fraud, etc. Most people would become fearful. They do not have a fear. Their veins, a psychopath will say, it's like ice water. So, there is a deficit there. There is a developmental disability in these people, despite the fact that they might have intellectual ability, strategic ability, and, commit these sort of crimes based on this deficit. So again, because they don't learn, they're not able to learn in this area. So it's like they're really missing this whole experience of human life. They're missing that in the fabric of emotions. They're not able to experience it. But so furthermore, do not feel ridiculed. Do not feel less than. Do not feel that you have done something wrong to miss out or lose this person, or you've lost a great person, because oftentimes people make that negative self-determination when they lose a relationship. And I want you to stop that and realize it has nothing to do with you. You're wonderfully attractive. You have a rich emotional repertoire with which to share to other people and discuss and work through, and then have, even more profound happiness and success once you're able to successfully work through these valley moments. But in a psychopath, that will never occur, because they are not there with you. I mean, physically, emotionally, psychologically, they don't have, the emotional hardware, if you will, to be with you. You're going to feel a real absence. You're going to feel a real abandonment there. And oftentimes this is replaying of previous relationships. It's just like a replay of your old relationships. And until you can then acknowledge that and realize that these people will be emotionally unavailable and that you deserve better, you need to understand this within yourself and what had drawn this in. And now it's time to work on the security and then the self-trust, which you've never maybe even experienced before in life. So newsflash, you've got new positive experiences ahead of you, which will redefine you and be life-changing as a person, which will allow you to develop your intellect, your emotional intelligence, your actual intellect, all the other aspects of yourself, the talents, the emotions, the happiness that doesn't end, the pleasure, which you're able to temper and not have up and down, which is elicited by alcohol, up and down, drink here, down there, and then, keeping a more consistent happiness and security within you, which is like a rock. I mean, it cannot be shattered. It's like it's just in your gut, like you swallowed a happy pill that never ever dissolves. It's just there within you. I mean, no matter what you do, you're feeling a chronic state of happiness. It's the lessons learned that have realized that, you have been, the victim of individuals who are, psychologically impaired, and that it has nothing to do with you. It just has everything to do with chronically being around a negative and toxic source. And, that is how you have picked up this toxicity. This is how children are like a sponge. They pick up the messages from their adult. I mean, they learn who they are from those first caregivers. So if these people have been your caregivers, who have been borderline, who have been psychopathic, who have been narcissistic, and can only satisfy their needs and are up and down and black and white, and they put you into, the negative category and have never been there for you, yet you love them because they're your parents. You're always going to love those people who brought you into the world. I mean, what other passageway, but coming through that individual, that portal, that individual, it's very deep and profound. So becomes very complex and sophisticated when this person who brought you into the world, who should be able to be with you and help you process all these emotions, especially as children, you need navigators, you need a rudder to the storm. When you come through, your experiences at school, fearful or sad or happy, and having to work through these, and the parent is not there to process this, you've now got a young, immature, undeveloped brain trying to process things that it doesn't have the ability to process. It's like it hits overwhelm, it hits overload. It's power surge. It's emotional power surge, and the young brain isn't supposed to be able to navigate it yet. It has to learn through. Just like you can't run a company at age 5. You haven't done grow. You're not done growing yet. So the human mind psychologically is the same way. It needs to learn and identify these feelings and have them validated to move on to the next step. So it's now time to take the awesome experience of being able to comfort and navigate yourself and be there for yourself and rely on yourself. And once you have that self-love, which maybe you've never experienced this before and you don't know what it feels like, you don't know what to do. Once you have that in place and you know what self-love is, you're then better able to see and distinguish who are the bad guys. I mean, i.e. not good for you, i.e. taking away from your internal real estate, your self-love, your self-validation, your talents, all the dynamic that makes you you, that allows you to manifest and create in your life, bring you wealth, bring you prosperity, bring you happiness, bring you safety, bring you true security that isn't based in a bottle, that isn't based in pills, that isn't based on whether somebody approves you that day or not, who says, who is based on sexual approval, sexual gratification. It is unconditional in nature, which means it is there for you 24/7. It's not something which is an up and down and sick and then not sick, hyper this, down that. It's not based on that. It's a consistent, feeling of strength, happiness, success, security, attractiveness, and then being able to bring forth that energy, that infinite white light, just energetic percolation in your body, which is better than any drug. It is with which every druggie is seeking, every alcoholic is seeking, is that heightened awareness. When you're able to provide that to yourself, that self-validation, it is really like that euphoric state, which is like, I finally have what I've been looking for all this time. And then once you have that, you don't have to go to any drug dealer. You don't have to go to any bottle. You can just chill out. You can just chill out, and you can just give yourself that statement in the I am, just chill out, and you're able to be in that moment. And then furthermore, you're able to see and distinguish for yourself like a real educated and informed person. Like with a magnifying glass, you can very clearly then see and determine who is positive for you and who is not. And you're able to sort away, boom, disqualify those people who are not in your best interests. They are in the no contact zone. You get into the sort zone. In other words, you begin to sort people out. Not like segregation, because then you begin to love those people of all cultures, all skin colors, all professions, and not be intimidated, not feel uncertain, but strong, and you're not fearful of those people who are pursuing, who are different. You begin to then be in the wonderful space, what do you call it, the fifth dimension, where you're really living in non-judgment and you're living in self-trust, and you love people of all races. You love people of all religions, their hair texture. I mean, to me, it's just like, it's like loving someone with long nails or not. I mean, how can you base, I really like that person only because they have long nails, or short nails. it's, you know, you begin to let go of a lot of that sort of pedantic thinking, you know, and judgment, which robs you of so much energy. Getting stuck and hung up on the judgment and that negative assessment of trying to always compete or compare yourself takes so much energy. Let it go. Let go of the rat race, and all of a sudden you find that you're in the win position. You know, you're in the win position, and then you just stay in that position. It's really when you're connected with that infinite source. You know, you are the light. You know, the sunlight is glowing through you. The sun, which illuminates your day, is inside you. It's just like, it's an amazing thing, but you only hear that, and you only see that, and you only know that once you're able to stay on that journey, and then have the bravery and the courage and the audacity to let the negative go. You're able to see it very clearly, and it takes the self-assertion, it takes the assessment. Once you're really able to get that and realize that that is who you're dealing with, you can easily shake them loose and say, okay, now is time. I'm sorry, but you know, it's got to go. And I am brave enough. I am audacity. You know, I have the audacity to let someone go. I don't care if the psychopath is so good looking. Oh my God, you know, whatever. The sex, whatever. The money, whatever. The cars, you know, the position. But once you let go of that, that person who has been harming you and reflecting back to you, you know, apparently weaknesses, because to them, having human emotions is a weakness. See, that's why they call it antisocial personality, because they do not uphold societal norms. They feel above it. They don't have to abide by it. And this goes further than running red lights. This goes, you know, this goes onto huge, profound levels. So I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.